You are tuning in to the best live stream on Thursdays, Tuesdays, and Sundays. It is Random Topics Thursdays with Gavin Richard on Channel Gboot2786. Welcome to Gavin Richard Presents. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking about Andrew Cuomo is a no-go, the Equality Act. We'll also be discussing the American Rescue Plan, if that's what you want to call it, and much, much more. Joining me live will be Shawn James, author of The Man Crisis, as well as the John Haynes series, and Pastor Clenard Childress of blackgenocide.org. This is Gavin Richard Presents. We are live, and I'm coming at you with 5. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest, Reverend Clenard Childress, and brother Shawn James. And I am your host, Gavin Richard. Thank you and welcome to another edition of Gavin Richard Presents. Let's get it started. Oh, there we go. I love when that beat drops. All right. All right, that's enough of that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Gavin Richard Presents. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are blessed and doing safe. I see we got a couple of people in the chat. Steve Mack says manners and respect. He's a new subscriber. Shout out to him. Thank you, brother, for tuning in. I ask you all, please, if you look at the Cash App at the bottom, you can please donate to the Cash App, Gavin Richard Esquire. As you know, YouTube does not monetize this channel, and of course, they mess with our analytics a little bit, but we are growing. We have people that are watching on Facebook. We have people watching on YouTube. We have people watching on Periscope. So I see people every day. I get new followers and subscribers. So you can't hold a true hustler down. So at any rate, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to welcome our guest, Pastor Clenard Childress. Pastor, thank you for tuning in. He is, of course, he runs the blackgenocide.org website. And of course, that deals with the issue of abortion and how it has impacted the Black community in this country, drastically altering our numbers. And I've had Pastor Childress come on. This is about I think his 5th time being on the show with me, 4th or 5th time. So I want to welcome him. You guys should check out that website if you have not, blackgenocide.org. And of course, you all know the gentleman down at the bottom. He has over 12,000 subscribers on his self-entitled YouTube channel. He is the author of The Man Crisis, as well as the John Haynes series, Eternal Night. He has several other books that he has written. Please give it up for Shawn James. Shawn has his latest book, Eternal Night. He also has another book that is out, which is, what is that book, Shawn? Is it
It's called John Haynes Taking Care of Business, and it will be available on March 20th.
March the 20th. John Haynes Taking Care of Business. Y'all please support this brother because he is self-publishing all of these books. He's written over 75 books total. And he has not had a vacation in years. So we need to give him a vacation. Buy some books from him, daggett. I'm trying to not say damn, it's Lent. Shawn, thank you for joining me. Pastor, thank you for joining me. So, gentlemen, let's get it started, as we say. I stated earlier this title. I said Cuomo is a no-go. Apparently, embattled governor of New York, your favorite governor, Shawn, Andrew Cuomo, is being pressured to step down. This was in the Chicago Tribune. This article's column said Democrats should disown Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now, mind you, what they're talking about is not in regards to the nursing home scandal where Cuomo hid data purposefully and supposedly for the reasons of not having Donald Trump involved when he was president at that time. so he skewed the numbers according to the reports that have been out there. But rather, this is about allegations of sexual misconduct and harassment that has been leveled at him. He has at least five accusers, if I'm not mistaken, who have accused him of either touching them inappropriately or saying things inappropriately. For instance, recently, a woman named Anna Ruck, who was 33, met him at a wedding reception, said he put his hand on her bare face back, and when she removed it, cupped her on her back and cupped her face as if he was getting ready to kiss her, and he kissed her on the cheek as she tried to pull away. And Cuomo has apologized, stating that that he doesn't deny overstepping, but he insisted he never touched anyone inappropriately. Me personally, being an attorney, I just say this, and I always say allegedly with things because as we live in America, every person is accused who's accused of something. They have a right to due process. They have a right, they're innocent until proven guilty. Of course, we don't have that in our public opinion and in the court of public opinion. And we also know, especially that Black Americans, Black men in particular, it's very easy for them to get hit with a rape allegation or a Me Too charge. And I am critical of the Me Too movement in many ways. For instance, I think it takes away our due process rights. I think to just charge someone just based off the fact you don't like them and just on an allegation is very dangerous. I think you have to have proof. And we're seeing that also with someone like T.I., who is T.I. and his wife Tiny, for instance. They have had their show suspended over allegations. But nevertheless, still things should be considered. People should listen when we have an accusation and investigate it if that needs to be. But I also think we have to be careful with this. Nevertheless, I don't particularly care for Mr. Cuomo and Governor Cuomo and some things that he has done. So I will start this off with Reverend Childress, and then I will go to Shawn because Shawn is from New York. Uh, but Reverend Childress, why don't you give your thoughts on this these latest accusations, if you have any?
Well, the handwriting was on the wall when he totally dissed God. And I've never thought I'd ever hear a politician take full credit for some good and say God didn't have anything to do with it.
Oh, yes, he did. I remember that. Yeah.
I was stunned. And I said, well, his days are numbered. And you just kind of sense there would be something, even though at that time they were touting him as America's governor. And certainly he was eyeing the White House. Well, that's all out. That's all out the window now.
Yeah.
Right now, he does not recover. He does not recover from this. And here's the handwriting on the wall. One, their own legislature, his own legislature, the Democrats are turning on him. When CNN barred his brother from covering him, the orders were given from the top down. For what reason? I'm only guessing. It's obvious. And him and Newsom, they are not rallied. They're not circling the wagons around them. And let me tell you something. When the Democrats circle, they are so far more unified than the Republicans. If the order had not come down to distance themselves from Cuomo, they would be defending him to no end. There'd be articles, there'd be all sorts of things to desensitize the public and also take out the hammer in these things of these accusations, because they're beating him down right now. And so this gives credence and relevance to the accusations because the media is backing off, saying, well, it must be true. The legislature is backing off. It must be true. Now, you could say this is a conspiracy theory because this is my theory. I said, why are they doing this to Newsom and Cuomo? Why? I personally believe that they don't want any other star other than Kamala Harris right now. No other star, no other shining light. Cuomo would have unquestionably been the best choice for the Democratic Party if all these accusations things that came up. Listen, and I hope I'm wrong. I was hurt. I don't like Joe Biden at all. You know that. Politics is person. The Democratic Party is just not the Democratic Party. You might as well call them the Marxist, socialist, whatever. But when I heard he wasn't going to do the State of the Union, I said he doesn't have 6 months. He doesn't have a year for sure. 6 months, if not sooner. In other words, we cannot. You're not. They're so afraid to put him out there for the State of the Union. They're not going to have one. Now, I didn't really vet that like I should. It came from an excellent source, so sometimes I'm slow vetting it because I trust the source. But America, we have never been here before. We're in big trouble. So Cuomo's demise is not to overshadow, and Newsom at the same time, this is amazing, is not to overshadow Kamala Harris, because who else is there that would basically, people would say, well, maybe they need to caucus and do something else. I don't know what you can do else legally, but right now she's being set up for that.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a damn good point, especially about Kamala Harris. I didn't know Biden had canceled the State of the Union, or that they were postponing it. But I know that they have cut live streams, and they don't really do a lot of interviews with him, I think, with the news media, like talking about it, because they know he'll slip up and likely say something he's not supposed to at this juncture. So I always thought that the reason why, in fact, he's doing these executive orders is because they know that he wouldn't be president for a long time. So he's getting everything done now and gathering up enough steam, especially for the Democratic Party for 2024. Although what I think now, especially with some of the things, and we'll talk about the Equality Act and, of course, House Bill 127, House HR 127, which is a gun control act, which is, we've talked about it before, but it's exceedingly dangerous in stepping on more of our constitutional rights. But certainly, I think that that might be, and Shawn has even pointed this out, could be curtains call for the Dems. But Cuomo, on the other hand, certainly this is not good for him. He is steadfast, saying he's not going anywhere. I don't know how long he has as far as his office. Shawn, you might know exactly.
Well, his term ends in 2022. So with Andrew Cuomo, he may say he's staying, but he's definitely going. And he may be going either by kicking and screaming, or they're just going to kick him out. Because I have to agree with the pastor that the nail was in the coffin when he spoke against God. Because when you speak against God, that's when he leaves you in his hands. And that's the most horrible fate that could ever happen to someone. So I will agree with the pastor on that. But your Andrew Cuomo he's been in trouble for a long time here. I mean, even before the pandemic, he had a $6 billion deficit as related to the budget because he wanted to give illegal immigrants health care. And all of the problems started compounding with that $6 billion deficit. Plus, we had the bail reform debacle here in New York, where they decided not to give cash bail out for misdemeanors. And that led to a spike in crime. And then we had the pandemic. And while your Andrew Cuomo was arrogantly thinking that he could become a presidential contender and was bragging about all of his so-called accomplishments, in the background, we had the COVID scandal going on because he did not want to provide services to people because he did not want Donald Trump to get the credit. Now, I find it quite troubling that people are not holding Andrew Cuomo accountable for that COVID scandal, which was clearly a compromise of ethics and really showed a complete lack of character on his part, because to put people's family members at risk here in New York and put their lives in danger of this deadly virus, all to spite a man, really shows that he was not an objective leader, but he had what I call a Trump obsession, or was what some people call the Trump derangement syndrome. And that Trump derangement syndrome is what led to him going out here not to use tools that Donald Trump provided for the American people, the USNS Comfort, the hospital situation at the Javits Center and the Barclays Center here in New York City, and the field hospital in Central Park, resources that could have saved lives. But because this man was so obsessed and in his feelings about getting back at Donald Trump, he let people die in nursing homes and put the elderly at risk. That's completely egregious on my part. But what I even find to be more troubling is the fact that people are more upset about alleged sexual harassment of some white women, but not about the safety of our elderly and the complete compromise of their ethics. Yes, this sexual harassment was egregious violation of those women's rights, but I find it, again, people's lives, people, thousands of people lost their lives. And instead of people holding him accountable for that, they deflect and try to talk about sexual harassment. But this man's ethics are just completely egregious. And I don't think he's going to survive this whole thing. He's going to be forced to resign. That's just an inevitability because his crimes are just too egregious. And he's going to be forced to step down because the party is going to make him step down because the party has a lot to lose in 2022. They know that the bloodbath is coming. They know that a 1994 style Republican revolution is coming, and they know that they really didn't really get a clear victory. They got a Pyrrhic victory with Joe Biden winning the presidency. Yes, they won the presidency short term, but there's a chance that they're going to lose two major state houses in Democratic strongholds, both New York and California, due to Andrew Cuomo and Gavin Newsom's failed policies. And they know they may possibly lose the House and the Senate if they don't get up off their butts and start moving a little faster towards providing the American people relief. Because with half the country out of work and a lot of people still struggling, people are just getting tired of these leftists and them pushing their alphabet agenda and going back to bomb Syria. They're tired of this nonsense. When a lot of people are out of work, a lot of people are struggling, a lot of people out here are trying to find a way to make a living out here, but they're not seeing much help given to them by your joker Joe Biden. And that's why this is going to be a Pyrrhic victory in the big picture, because your leftists, they're playing check Candyland, while everybody else is playing chess. And when I see the big picture, yeah, the party is moving past your Andrew Cuomo, and they're moving past because what they do is they drop the dead weight, and that's not going to help them because, again, 94 style bloodbath is coming, and there's no escaping that 94 style bloodbath.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, both of you actually, because this man, obviously, with all of that going on, I don't see how he can survive another year in office getting anything done. In fact, it was reported that members of his own cabinet, members of his own party, of his own party in the Senate are trying to impeach him currently.
Yeah, they are.
They are trying to impeach him from office. And so, it was interesting because my folks were watching CNN yesterday when I was in the house, and I saw Don Lemon talking about Andrew Cuomo, and he was talking with I hate to say, but some airhead, because I couldn't, something about sexual harassment and women and how he's not upset with all of this, and I'm like, who is this person? But neither here nor there. I look at what Cuomo has been accused of. Forget even the harassment aspect of it, but I look at what he's doing with these nursing homes, what happened there, what he was accused of with that, and CNN could not cover it, didn't cover it, talk about it. They gave him a pass, as you said, Shawn. And I think it relates to even bias in the news media. What was funny and ironic is that Andrew Cuomo actually defended back in November. I have the article, Donald Trump against the media, talking about how biased it was. So I thought it was funny that all of that happened, and now he's experiencing this. And Me Too is making a comeback because when Joe Biden was running for president and he was accused of touching, right? He was accused of some things. That's true. they went out of their way to destroy Tara Reid. In fact, there was a USA Today article where a former prosecutor went through her accusations step by step, dismantling it, telling her why she's not credible. They published that. I talked about it on my podcast, my first episode of my podcast on Anchor, which we're on Apple right now too. Uh, they were basically trying to get Joe Biden in office. I remember Alyssa Milano, who was all part of the Me Too movement, going ahead spearheading the Me Too movement. But then when Joe Biden was being accused, she's like, I don't know. I'm gonna still vote for him. I'm gonna still support him. So people are very. It tells me that they're not sincere, and whether they want to really help victims or so-called victims, if it is true. I think they're just interested in attention and being at the forefront and making noise. So I see that now, and with Cuomo and this is coming up, and I don't think getting back to him, I don't think he's going to survive even the next month, just with these accusations.
Yeah, I'd have to say that because his predecessor, Elliot Spitzer, didn't last much longer after the prostitution scandal came out on him. So looking at Elliot Spitzer, his predecessor in 2008 or 2009, I believe. So he had to resign as related to those prostitution allegations. So Andrew Cuomo, it's just a matter of time. He's going to be leaving again, either by walking out or them kicking him out. So that's going to be his fate.
You go ahead, Bishop. Bishop.
No, I'm agreeing. But your listeners should also know, because of the apparent demise of Andrew Cuomo, that now the Republicans in our state legislature in New Jersey are going after Phil Murphy on that issue because he did the same thing. And so this is exciting to me, despite the later topics of the Equality Act and other things that are going on. It's exciting to me that there may be hope for balance of some degree, and also people really beginning to stand up who should stand up. The fact that, as Brother James has said, no one was held accountable. These governors, Cuomo wasn't, Murphy wasn't, and I believe Wolf in Pennsylvania, the governor, did the same thing. So, but all should applaud the Republicans, which is something you never have an opportunity to do in New Jersey, is to applaud the Republicans for now possibly smelling blood in the water and going after Murphy. There's a bond between Murphy and Cuomo that someone will write about one day. And soon as this happened, and soon as it got to this point, it's been only in the last couple of weeks, they're now going to open up an investigation, as if to say he's not going to be able to have the juice that Cuomo brings to even New Jersey, which is powerful. So it's the accountability part. It's not over till it's over. You don't want it to be just a dog and pony show to give appearances of doing something righteous, but yet knowing will nothing come of it. I hope it's not that, but I hope it damages Murphy enough that he is not successful in November for his gubernatorial run.
Oh, I believe the damage is going to be extensive. I mean, I see this affecting not only Cuomo, but I see it affecting Phil Murphy, Tom Wolf in Pennsylvania, and Gretchen Whitmer. I just see this affecting a whole lot of Democratic politicians. I mean, like I said before, I'm seeing a 94 style bloodbath getting ready to happen because a lot of these guys on the left practically overstepped their bounds in this whole COVID pandemic, and they abused their constituents. And a lot of their constituents are really fed up with their policies, which have really made life in places like here in New York absolutely miserable.
Well, let's talk about the real reason there's going to be a bloodbath in 22. Because last week, one of your excuse me. I'm still suffering this thing here. One of your watchers or viewers called up and said Donald Trump is finished. I hope you heard him at CPAC on this past Sunday. He's basically doing, and something, he's basically said he's going to have a second term. He basically said, he clearly put this out. He will do everything possible to get congressmen elected. Did you hear his numbers as far as his endorsements? The only one that he endorsed that lost was to somebody whose platform basically stated that they were more Trump than the other guy that he endorsed. And obviously that person had the record to prove it because they did vote. So his main objective now is 22, the congressional, and then 2 years. I thought he was going to say he was going to run in a congressional race, like his daughter is running, I believe. But anyway, that's going to be a tremendous help to the lazy, often dormant Republicans that they have this. And 75% of Republicans say they stay connected because of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's looking good if we can get there to 22.
Jimmy Kimmel, and I was going to talk about cancel culture in a second, but Jimmy Kimmel even said this is how Trump gets elected with regards to like the canceling of the Dr. Seuss books, the Mr. Potato Head being gender neutral now, which I think is ridiculous. People don't like having this agenda being pushed onto them. And I remember exactly when Barack Obama was near the end of his term and Hillary Clinton was coming in to run against Donald Trump. And, some of the things that we were seeing, when Barack Obama was president, he was endorsing not only the LGBTQ, but also he was openly fighting against these bathroom bills that were in states like North Carolina and Georgia, in some other states, I believe even in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. And he actually said, and had Loretta Lynch say this, that any bathroom bill that tries to force a person to use the bathroom that they're not comfortable with was no different than what happened with Jim Crow or with the Dred Scott decision.
It's terrible.
Well, it was a horrible comparison. It's not even in the same category of fruit when you bring that up, but he has a history, and I'm going to talk about him in a second, but he has a history of talking down to black men, black people in particular, but especially black men. I guess if we can go there, I'm going to go ahead and just put this as his topic because while Shawn and I had talked about this previously, I didn't have you come on, Rev. I don't think when we discussed this, but Obama actually said yes to reparations out of office on his podcast that he did with Bruce Springsteen, the inaugural episode called Born in the USA. Obama said reparations would have been met with white resistance on his new podcast, Renegades Born in the USA. He said, but during his 2008 campaign, Obama appeared to be opposed to reparations. He actually was opposed to it.
Yes, he was.
I'm sorry?
No, I said, yes, he was. He was opposed to it.
Yeah.
No, I'm agree. Yeah.
Yeah, he actually stated here in his podcast that he feels reparations were justified, but explained that it was a non-starter during his presidency because of white resistance. Obama 59 has launched an 8-episode podcast series called Renegades Born in the USA with 71-year-old rock legend Bruce Springsteen, released through Spotify's partnership with Obama's Higher Ground production company. In the episode, Obama specifically stated, we've never went through a true reckoning, and so we buried one huge part of our experience and our citizenry in our minds. If you ask me theoretically, are reparations justified? The answer is yes, Obama responded. There's not much question that the wealth of this country, the power of this country was built, and this is very important, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to this. Listen to what he says. He says, there's not much question that the wealth of this country, the power of this country, was built in significant part, not exclusively, maybe not even the majority of it, but a large portion of it was built on the backs of slaves. The former president added, what is also true is that after the formal end of slavery, the systematic oppression and discrimination of Black Americans continued under Jim Crow. See, it's not just about reparations for slavery, it's also about what happened with Jim Crow, because at that point, remember, Black Americans, even though they had constitutional rights through the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, after Reconstruction ended, there were laws put in place to prevent them from going to the polls. There was marks of threats of violence that was used against them by members of the White Citizens Council and the Ku Klux Klan, things of that nature. And also being unable to own property. And even on those property, they were taxed. And of course, the American Revolution started. Why? Because taxation without representation. Black Americans fought a revolution because they got tired of a tyrant. So Obama here again, and what's also hypocritical that I find is that President Obama, when he was president, he supported reparations and approved it for Jewish Americans because there were American companies that benefited from the Holocaust. They actually sent John Kerry to give monies to Jews in Israel. Let's not forget he also approved of $500 billion for Native Americans. He had a great relationship with the Native American community. So I'm going to I'll start with you, Shawn, on that aspect of it. I know we've talked about it before, but I'm going to start. Well, you know what? Let me do this. Let me get past the Childress's point again. Let's start with you again since I've got Shawn's take, but I'm going to get Shawn to come chime in on it.
On reparations, whether I feel on Obama's hypocrisy or reparations. What was that?
Both of them, if you want to talk about it.
Well, first of all, Obama was a smart politician. He unquestionably knew, during his presidency, he knew what to push, but he also knew what he could push. Joe Biden could not push these things. He's too flawed. Not only that, he has too many accounts of racist remarks. Even his recent one talking about rural children and inner city children have problems knowing how to operate a computer. But having said that, Obama knew he could get away with stuff and things of pushing an agenda because he was an African-American male, the first African-American president and all that. And, all the way up to rainbowing the White House. Now, getting to reparations, why he previously, I heard a discussion, his last discussion on it, and he was not for it. Now he's saying basically the nation would not be ready for it. Was he? I just have to ask this quick question. Is he saying the nation is ready for it now?
He said theoretically it's warranted. That was his words. But I can tell you, and as you pointed out, he was emphatically against it. In fact, he did an interview with Julianne Malvo when the question was brought up. According to Dr. Boyce Watkins, he walked out when she started talking about it. So I don't know if he's saying that it should be granted. Personally, I think it's a dog and pony. If we talk about it, I've did comments on this when they did the HR 40 meeting a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was a joke. Especially if you have Herschel Walker talking about it or Larry Elder. But no, I don't. I think he's just saying that because a lot of African Americans now are starting to wake up from when he was in office. We could not you could not say anything negative against Barack Obama when he was in office. I never forget being on Southern's campus, and I was just asking people, well, where did he come from? And questions about it, like, did you know that this man was the mentee of Zbigniew Brzezinski? who wrote the book The Grand Chessboard, and they weren't worried about that. It was like, oh, you just believe in everything it tells you. Oh, you just believing all this. There was a reverend on Southern's campus who was a classmate of mine saying the same old crap. So you couldn't talk to him. And I'm pretty sure I'm sure he voted for Biden. I'm very sure he. But yeah, but that's the type of stuff we went through.
Well, reparations, in answering the question, get away from Obama, because right now, is the nation ready for it? I would say no. Okay. Two, I do agree with him. His assessment was wrong. It is far more than a lot. It was all of Wall Street benefited from slavery, I mean, I didn't understand him making it so, saying maybe just by saying a lot. It was very predominant in the wealth. Now, you mentioned Larry Elder. I heard a little bit what he had to say about it, but my point of view is who and how would it be distributed and to whom? The Jews, you can kind of figure out, designate a lot of their community in the way. Even there, it's shaky, and yet he tried to do it there. But who would get it? How? Why would they get it? And I think this is why I appreciated Donald Trump. He tried to give to the institutions that he knew he increased greatly the HCB, Historically Black College fund. He made it so they didn't have to come back every year and beg for it. Now, of course, Biden may change that. But what I'm saying is he tried to put the money back into the community. But I think Trump also knew reparations. Now, everything is weaponized today, even the Me Too. I'd be okay with Me Too if you went after Democrats as strongly as you do Republicans. I'm a defender of women's rights, and my dad taught me to be a gentleman and always respect women. So it's offensive to me that Democrats attempt to try to be the strong arm and the person who's supposed to be so just. And these policies and basically the society is very detrimental to women. And that's and you will deal with one thing. I'll be able to show you exactly what I mean. But I'll wait for Shawn. Maybe Shawn can help me on this. I don't know where that money would go and to whom. And when Democrats start pushing something, I start backing up.
Well, that's the thing. The Democrats really aren't even pushing for it either.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I think it'd be abused. I just really do. If it was going to get to the people, justify. And he's right. I mean, come on. I mean, the wealth of this nation. Unfortunately, I don't. Somebody said, "Well, what if there wasn't slavery?" Well, we'll never know. Okay, but the fact of the matter is that we're talking about giving just due, and I think something should be done whenever it can be done, designated for those who had it difficult having access to the American dream, that were discriminated against and systemically ostracized to keep from being able to make wealth. I'll say this lastly because Dr. King brought this out. 50 acres and a mule. Well, when we were released in 1865, there was acres and acres of land available, but there was none given. But there was given to immigrants coming in. Go ahead.
Well, I would say no, it's okay. What I would say, I disagree. I think it is probable that they could do it. They actually did in 1865, the 40 acres and a mule. William Tecumseh Sherman, who was the general of the Union Army, he had special field orders that allocated, parts of Florida, Georgia, and I believe the Carolinas for former freed slaves. That's where the 40 acres and a mule came from. And Lincoln approved it. What happened was, of course, is that Abraham Lincoln gets assassinated, and Andrew Johnson becomes president, and Andrew Johnson, who was a vehement racist, he reversed that. Andrew Johnson, who fought against even ratifying the 14th Amendment, he refused to have anything to do with it. He's actually considered one of the worst presidents in history, and the only thing highlight of his term was purchasing Alaska. So that's the only thing he's remembered. But it's more than, as I pointed out again, it's not just about the slavery aspect too. I'm looking at preventing blacks from voting, paying taxes issues. They can look at, even with slavery, there are birth records, records obviously of people, uh, you know, who are owned that they can trace to. Now, in regards to some of the institutions, those are great things, but the problems with the institutions too is that I don't think they have been effective as well in our communities. I think even to some degree, Reverend, our churches, and I think you even have hinted at this too. Some of our churches, maybe not all of them, have sold us out. I've seen, some of them have sold, pastors, not all of them, but some of them have not been good with a lot of things. Uh, yeah, but I think, especially they've given monies to Japanese after the World War II. We've had Native Americans that have been given monies, and actually, I read an article. The Native Americans actually just changed their language. I believe the Cherokee Nations. There was anti-black language in that because people forget even Native Americans were involved in slavery, as well as, there were some blacks that were involved with it as well. But there was, they were part of that. There were some slaves that were owning that. And there were black people also that were part of the foundation of this country before even Columbus came. But Shawn, let's get your thoughts on it.
Well, as I've said before, your Barack Obama was extremely disingenuous when he made those statements talking about his 4 reparations. When we look at his record, he already said he was against it. And he just is doing this basically to try to win over the black vote that he sees that is already left. It's like a lot of people are waking up to the Democratic Party. They're waking up to the Democrat plantation. He's hearing the rhetoric, and now he wants to flip-flop to get people back on the plantation. He wants people to bring their booties back to the poll to vote for the next Democratic candidate. And he wants to talk about reparations, but the party doesn't really want to do anything as related to reparations. And that's where I see your Barack Obama practically being full of it, because he didn't do anything for black people in the 8 years that he was in office. I mean, here was a man who had the power to help black people. And those black people, again, voted for him 98% in 2008, 93%, I believe, in 2012. Could have easily done something for black people as related to providing tangibles, but he did nothing in his 8 years. And now he wants to Monday morning quarterback and talk about he's for reparations. Well, what's the use of you talking about this when you could have done something about it? I mean, this is classic beta male passive aggressive behavior. In passively, he's saying that he's about something, but aggressively, he's not in a position where he can do anything. I've seen this textbook beta male behavior. And your Barack Obama is expressing this right now. And it just shows me how full of it he is as related to reparations. He only wants to discuss reparations now that it's starting to gain momentum. Now that guys like Professor Black Truth, The Business, Tariq Nasheed, they did all the groundwork pushing reparations to the forefront. And now he wants to try to capitalize on that work of New Black Media. But most people in New Black Media already know that this guy is full of crap. And they already said, look, we're not even dealing with him because he was never about tangibles. He was never about a black agenda. He's a fake pro-black, and he's mostly for his white slave masters. So his rhetoric means nothing, because we understand that, again, reparations is not just about slavery, as I've stated in numerous videos and live streams. Reparations isn't just about slavery and compensating our ancestors for their work in building this country. No, it is also about providing reparations and compensation for the rights we were denied after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and the terrorism we endured during the Ku Klux Klan when black businesses were burned, when we were denied the right to vote due to things like the grandfather clauses and the poll taxes and the tests that denied Black people the right to vote or the right to choose their own candidates. And we were also denied economic opportunities, both in the Jim Crow South and in the North, due to the discrimination Black men endured. And I talked about that as related to the New York City Transit Authority, where Black men couldn't get any job but porter until 19.
Porters.
Yeah, they were porters until 1937. So Black men couldn't be motormen. They didn't have an opportunity to advance. They didn't have an opportunity to move up in many businesses. The only jobs they could get were a chauffeur, janitor. I mean, Black people were denied an equal opportunity in this country to achieve the American dream. Many of us were not able to get the GI Bill. Many of us weren't able to get the daytime jobs at many companies or even office jobs at many companies. And we were denied so many opportunities just during the Jim Crow period. And then that discrimination went on, even with affirmative action, which was supposed to, again, compensate Black men for the past discrimination. But that discrimination went on because white women, Hispanics, and Black women were given jobs passive aggressively to deny the Black man an opportunity to go out here and achieve his employment as related to past discrimination and correct past discrimination. Affirmative action majority went to white women and other minorities. And we also have current and ongoing discrimination, because I myself have experienced this when I went to hiring pools at your so-called leftist and liberal CUNY colleges, which are supposed to be about equal opportunity, unless you're a heterosexual Black man. And then you're denied equal opportunity because they want to hire every other minority but the heterosexual Black man. And then they try to find ways to keep the Black man out of the job market. So your reparations are meant to compensate Black people for centuries of discrimination, racism, and slavery that kept us from being able to compete effectively in the American marketplace and achieve the American dream. I mean, you got benefits from it for over 500 years, and now it's time to pay up for all the benefits you received on the backs of Black labor and denying Black people access to compete in the marketplace.
Yeah, most definitely. What you said too about the affirmative action, that white women statistically benefit under affirmative action, especially today. And in particular, too, I combine that with what's going on with these immigrants that are coming in. They're basically, and I'll say this, they're a buffer class that acts especially above Black people. Black people are being pushed permanently into an underclass that we can't get out of. We're the first fired, last hired. When you have President Biden, and this is my issue, is that and here's the hypocrisy in this too, Pastor Childress. How is it you can say, I'm not going to do anything that's just going to benefit Black people? No, if you're Kamala Harris, but yet your president, your boss signs an executive order to protect Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders that are here in this country. I listened to Roland Martin once, and he said that they can't do anything for Black people specifically because they can't mention race by law, which is an outright lie, because they just did it.
Yeah. Well, the border situation proves a lot of hypocrisy, unquestionably, of the Democratic Party. I'm praying that people wake up and see. Thank God we had 4 years of someone who was trying to do something. But my point is this: we are now paying for the health care and the well-being of all those persons that are there at the border. The coyotes recognized the change in administration immediately. So the human trafficking now has stepped up. 11 Iranians, I repeat, Iranians were caught 2 weeks ago. Well, what were they going to do? You have no idea. And first of all, if you can pay for their health care, you can pay for the health care of the children, Bedford-Stuy and all. You're going to have some after school programs get us back to phonics and reading properly and the basics. I'm shocked. We can do it, but we have chosen, as one of your listeners put up there, they chose not to do it. They could do it, but they've chosen not to do it. So the border shows classes, as you stated already, preferences. It's almost no longer race. Race is used as a weapon to demonize. LGBT is number one as far as lobbying, and second is the teachers union. Now, teachers union may be more powerful than LGBT. They're kind of battling, but that's the most persuasive people with legislators right now and sitting officials, and it's amazing. Okay,
LGBT is number one.
Okay, all right. I called them number one, but right now the schools don't have kids in them because of the union. Okay, and they've dictated and said to the sitting Democratic, basically in the inner city, saying we don't want to go back, and we're not going to go back until we feel it's safe. Well, all the data shows you can go back. Okay, all the data shows. Matter of fact, the kids should be more afraid of you than you, the kids. So, but they're basically they're impervious to it. Okay, it's old guys like me that have to be more careful, which is what I did. I thank God I was on a vitamin regimen when it hit. Yeah, and listen, tell you something, it'll knock you down. But like anything else, if you're taking care of yourself pretty well, I was prepared for it as well as my wife. We were taking the regimen, and you go back to work and you go back and do what you do. Like, you don't shut the nation down over it. And the science proves that they have made a great error, but it was by design in doing this. So getting back, lastly, and this goes back to kind of the how they've done this, basically, and how they have more or less empowered themselves. They recognize the bloodbath coming, as they said in 22, but instead of trying to recruit on ideas, they're once again pandering to these special interest groups and planning more fraud, because the election laws that they pass, they want more mail-in ballots. France doesn't let you do it. I think it's Spain that doesn't let you do it because of the fraud. We recently had a race right here, and I can't think where it's at. The judge said there's 78% of these mail-in ballots. It wasn't the presidential race like it should have been, but 78% of these ballots are falsified. So wherever it was, he said, he hit the gavel and said, I want a new election. That's what should have been done for November 3rd, once you found the proof and the evidence of it. So the DNC, the Democratic Party, I keep saying I got to be redundant. This is not Joe Lieberman. This is not JFK. This is not those Democrats. These are socialist globalists. I'm telling you, and we have to just say we have to be very supportive of the other party. Notice Trump said, I'm not going to start another party because that will only split our vote.
Yeah, he did say that.
And so he says he's going to, can I just say something? I know people who know, he reluctantly said that. Reluctantly, but he knew he's a businessman. So he strategized, yeah, I got it, because he was going to start, another party, but he had time to think. And he's right. It would not survive. 22 is so crucial now, unless something happens before then, because you still have an inkling of hope with some of these cases out there. But I like when he says, how can 28 states not have standing? He said the Supreme Court did us a great injustice. He basically was saying there's corruption. There's corruption all over. So I hope I didn't get too far off, but it's the Democrat. I hate, who wants one party around being so dominant? I don't see how anybody can embrace the policies of the DNC. I just don't see it.
Well, I think now, because and I actually saw a headline that was shared to me earlier, but I think they've said Biden's approval rating has plummeted. From what I've reading here, they're saying plummets as Trump agenda becomes more popular than ever. This was shared with me on YouTube by brother
Yeah.
Bernard Johnson. Shout out to him. I don't know exactly what the polls are in terms of Biden's rating at this moment, but I can
Yeah. No, I
tell
don't know.
you if things are going to are, we're seeing obviously, uh, our leaders, our so-called leaders, putting others ahead of the American people, which is something we typically get. This American Rescue Plan, which is something I wanted to talk about too. I noticed when I looked at it, there's money, at least $100 million that's going to the arts programs, like the Kennedy Center, things of that nature. And the only thing is, those places are already closed. I'm
Right.
not saying that they, I'm not saying that they can't get money, but remember what they did last time when they tried to pass something. There was a lot of pork in it, and we had $1,400 that's still being allocated that they wanted to give to the American people. But Biden had met with Democrats, moderate Democrats, they stated, and limited the amount of people still who would get it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
between him being in office and Trump, if he's going to limit the amount, I mean, certain people still wouldn't qualify under it. But people have not been working for months. Even
No.
those that made 200, let's say you made $150,000 a year, and you're a married couple, or you made more. If you weren't if you weren't able to work from home,
Mm.
uh, if your job required you to go out and you were off or couldn't go out for a month or two on end, you had trouble.
Yeah.
So how is
I, the restaurant people, I don't know how some of them are doing it, but my heart goes out to them. I mean, 25% capacity. You can't live off of 25% capacity. Then they said 50. Any restoration, any means of getting dollars to restaurant owners, there are small business people. I'm all, I'm totally for, simply because you blew it on how to handle the crisis. And I'm not minimizing. I've been there. I'm not minimizing COVID-19, but the fact of the matter is, H1N1, or was that it? Was back in 2012, was far more devastating. Okay, you didn't have to lie back then who was dying of it. I mean, I know a multitude of incidences where they are putting on COVID, and it was not COVID. Okay, so I say that and say right now, without question, I don't think these policies are not going to be challenged, more so greater as the months go on, because you had a point of reference now. You had 4 years of Donald Trump. You had a point of reference, and someone juxtaposed his policies and what happened over just the not even 60 days yet of what Biden has done. His first day on the job, he killed the Keystone Pipeline, 65,000 jobs. I mean, and these states,
a big mistake?
yeah, Mississippi, and I forgot who the other state is, basically totally, Texas, basically said, take off some masks, no more of this, just go back to work. Well, Mississippi has become an oasis of truth, as Martin said. That is, we'll get through it. You protect the vulnerable, okay? And that was the answer all along. But it took them too long to implement it. But I think we'll come out of this eventually. I think the people, as Shawn stated, are waking up, especially African Americans. That's why they want mail-in voting. They're realizing they lost their stronghold there.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm trying to see if we can squeeze that in. Greg Abbott he's saying next week they're removing mask mandates and opening
Yes.
the state up 100%. A lot of people are not in favor of that. Myself included, I'm kind of a little cautious with it, just with everything going on. I think it might be a little hasty, but you know, it's causing them back and forth. But somebody quipped at Joe Biden because Biden had called out the governor over that. But somebody said, well, he's talking about our state, but yet he's a lot opening the borders to everybody.
That have it. These kids, some of these people coming over here, going into the society. I forgot that. I meant to mention that. And yet you want you want to lock down everything, but you're letting it in. They're not vetted. Who can support this?
Well, I recently heard a report that several Mexicans that came across the border, they all had COVID. So how are you closing up the states, but then you have the borders open up? It's a contradiction, and it just shows how they're more about their agenda than allegedly protecting the American people. I mean, you tell the states that they're wrong for opening up, but then you have a border wide open and you're letting in individuals who may not only also have COVID, but may have other diseases. And you're also opening up a border to terrorists who may slip in, because when you have an open border, what happens is everybody slips in. Right. So this is not only a danger to Americans' health, it's also a danger to national security. And again, it's all because Joker Joe is on his feelings about Donald Trump. Democrats are in their feelings about Donald Trump, and they're not thinking critically about their decisions. They just want to undo everything that Donald Trump did, not understanding that there were some things that he did that were actually helping American people, like that Keystone Pipeline, which one of the things we had with Trump's presidency was less dependence on foreign oil. We were actually producing our own oil and gas, and that gas was actually at an all-time low. That was one positive of the Trump presidency. And the other positives were
a war. I think that was a big.
We had no wars. Unemployment was low. I mean, people wanted to make Donald Trump out to be this super evil guy, but some of his policies were effective in helping the American people. And even though I say he's not qualified to be president, he did do some good for certain groups of people, and Black people in some cases indirectly did benefit from his policies. So when I look at Joker Joe's policies, nobody's really benefiting, and he's just dragging his feet because, again, we were supposed to get that stimulus, supposed to be in February, and now it's March, and we probably will never get it because this guy's just, the Congress, even with both houses, is dragging their feet. They're making the same mistake Obama made in 2009 with an unemployment benefits extension, which I said was the nail in the coffin for him in 2009, not getting the American people the relief during that Great Recession. Congress took a vacation and blew the American people off. And then the American people made them pay in 2010 for blowing them off. And they're doing the exact same thing when you have half the country unemployed, half the country still trying to pay its bills, and half the country still struggling. You don't blow the American people off. You make the American people a priority. You stop bickering and arguing, and you come together. But the Democrats, they're, again, doing what Obama did, taking the American people for granted. And when you take people for granted, they eventually are going to punish you when it's time to go into the polls once again, because the American Rescue Plan, this should have been implemented far back as January 21st. I mean, this should have been put as a priority. You don't put the American people last and then go out here and put alphabets, rights, and all this other stuff first. You put the American economy first, because if the economy is not working, then you're not going to have a country, because when people are simmering, boiling in anger and frustrated about their government not providing for their needs, they're going to try to change the government. And that's something that these people they're not really thinking about. People are tired of this, of just being blown off and being ignored by the people they elect. And these people don't understand that if they don't want to give people what they want, they're just going to either boot them out and send a message that way, because if people can't get their tangibles, then they're going to vote against them, and you won't have that Black vote this time to try to save you this time, because Joker Joe has alienated that Black voting base by not providing us with any executive orders or providing us with any policy. So you won't have any Black people going out here to bring their booties to the poll to save you this time. And with that whole Trump base still very strong, again, not putting this rescue plan as priority one, this is just giving more ammunition to the Republican Party to go out here and implement the ammunition for the bloodbath of 2022.
I want to show you all. This is what I say when it's additional pork. Uh, there are different sections in this act, so I'm not going to read all of it. But if you read here closely, now if you remember what they did back in December when they were sending monies to Pakistan and gender studies, they were sending monies to Libya. Now, what they have here, they talk about additional assistance for SNAP online purchasing and technology improvements. In addition to amounts otherwise made available, there is appropriated for fiscal year 2021 out of any amounts in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, 25 million to remain available through September 30th, 2026 to carry out this section. There is also sections for Howard University. That was mentioned in here. Vaccine distribution. You could see here the emergency rural development grants for rural health care. So while they mention COVID-19 throughout this, it's essentially it's a spending bill. It's not a technical COVID relief bill. Oh, here's something here. Indian Affairs. In addition to amounts, I just saw it, to amounts otherwise made available, there is appropriated for the fiscal year 2021 out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $900 million to remain available until expanded pursuant to the Snyder Act, of which $100 million will go to tribal housing improvement, $772,500,000 shall be for tribal government services, public safety, justice, social services, child welfare assistance, and for other related expenses. 7.5 million shall be for related federal administrative costs and oversight, and 20 million shall be available to provide and deliver potable water. Exclusions from this calculation, funds appropriated under subsection A shall be excluded for the calculation of funds received by those tribal governments that participate in the small entity program. So talk about they can't do anything specifically for Black people. They're certainly, that's almost $1 billion. I'm reading that correctly. That's $900 million. Almost $1 billion.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm not saying that people don't deserve money and get help, but damn.
And they told us they couldn't do anything for Black people.
No.
Yeah, this is the current rescue.
This is this is the rescue plan.
Well,
and I can guarantee you, none of those congressional leaders have read it when they passed it through.
No, because they were ordered to pass it through, and you don't question. That's one thing about them; they remain lockstep, and that's the rule. You know, you don't kick up against the order of the lady of the house. And
Kanye said that, yeah.
So it's that's not even as some of the Republicans. I think Gates was his name. Gates was saying. He says it's not even a COVID bill. So, and you think they're exaggerating somewhere, and you're going through some of those line items there. I'm saying, my God, I mean, why would you take something that's been so disastrous and still try to use it for your own agenda? Where this money is going, it's just like anything else the Democrats do. It's going over to their factions. They're already setting up the companies to receive this money. They're already have their people lined up. It never gets. It's just like in New Jersey, the 1/3 of the budget takes up our taxes here in New Jersey. And Dan Gabriel, an old friend of mine, going on to be with the Lord, stopped listening to their reports and did an audit of Newark, which was he had the money to do it. It's very costly to do an audit of a city, but he did an audit of the educational monies that were being attributed to Newark, and found out that Newark was paying $32,575 per child.
Mm.
Of course, the first thing I said, give me 32 and I'll teach 5 kids. That's good enough. I'm not greedy. And I said, I'll give the best education ever. But my point is, any parent would be able to tell you that never gets to the child. Those dollars do not get into the classroom. And if you want to look at a good video, one time I finally met these people and worked with them a little bit, spreading myself all over the place, which isn't always good, but you had to, because the second genocide is going on in this country, the genocide in the mind of our children with the poor education that we're getting in the inner city schools. And that's not to take away from some of the great schools that are in the inner city for African Americans. I can't think of my brother's name right now, but it's too few and far between. And so I guess what I'm saying, that's when you were listing all those things, will the money get to the Indians? If it was for the Indians, would the money get to these places? When you send these countless dollars to Pakistan, does anybody, any accountability? Is there ever an audit? Actually, what is it spent for? That goes right into somebody's coffers. That is unquestionably payoffs from the past elections a lot of times, or for future favors. It's sad, because we are the only country that I know of, I could be wrong, that would pay $32,000, $500 for a failing system. That when the school is graded, it is failing. The school is failing, but you're paying $32,000 per student. And that's past some colleges, as far as an education is concerned. We're corrupt. There was $1 billion. I say, people say, you say that a lot. I say, because it doesn't get through. There was right. $1 billion missing out of the New Jersey schools construction fund. $1 billion missing. I'm going to say it again, missing. Now, wouldn't that make you want to audit? Wouldn't that make you want to investigate? Shouldn't somebody been indicted? Not one audit, not one investigation. So immediately it came to me. I said, well, the educational fund and the teachers union, this is the mafia of New Jersey. Okay. You keep saying you'll do a better job if you get more money, and you're getting the money, but the job is not increasing. Now, I'm not blaming the teachers only. You know, we have some home issues in the inner city, and a lot of it's the church's fault, because when the shift came to mentor, we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to take the time out of our seeking of pleasure to put a couple hours in with a kid, do these things that our community might have been different. But this is America. It has to change.
Yeah, man. When you said $1 billion, I just jumped up. Listen, from a school.
$1 billion. Now here's if you ever hear Reverend Childress being an alley, this is why. Okay, why? Well, who can hide $1 billion?
Right.
A person who deals with billions of dollars.
Yeah.
At that time, it was Corzine, just like the guy we got sitting there now, a Saks Fifth Avenue guy. They know how to put stuff. Millions and billions of dollars. And so I said, now here's a guy who struggled through school. Finally, when I decided I wanted to learn something, I decided I was going to go to School of Theology, and I wish I'd have done it a little differently. But anyway, I just want to say, I said, now wait a minute. I'm a layperson in every sense of the word. Isn't it obvious who's involved in this? Isn't it quite obvious? And you would hear hushes go over the room. I mean, nobody. And see, you got to put your energies to where your heart is most important. And the abortion issue pains me, grieves me. So I'm motivated to stay busy there. But please do not tell me New Jersey is not corrupt when you can have $1 billion missing. Nobody goes to jail.
Well,
Nope.
in New York City, we had the same thing. There was supposed to be $1 billion allocated to mental health here, and Charlene McCrae just can't seem to find it. I mean, the whole thing is that this money gets allocated in earmarks and grants, but it never gets to the people, and that's always been a problem with this legislation.
Mm,
They'll put all this pork in the budgets, but then it never gets to services that serve the people.
good point. That's right.
Well, what I will say to you, Adam says Cuomo is not in trouble. He will keep his seat. I doubt that.
He's
But
done.
I
There's no
doubt
way.
I don't know who Adam's talking. What he might have been thinking about Chris Cuomo, his brother. He's going to stay at CNN. He's got a better chance. But
he may take the seat home he's sitting in, but he's not going to get gubernatorial speak. He can't manage right now. He can't even.
he's
I don't think Cuomo can stay governor not having the power. I think it would eat away at him too much. But go ahead.
Well, I'll top all of you all with this. I'm in New Orleans, so we're part of the good old boy system. There were billions of dollars after Hurricane Katrina that was allocated to go to the hardest hit areas in this city. 80% of this city was underwater, and most of it was in the black neighborhoods, such as New Orleans East, the Lower Ninth Ward, the Gentilly Woods area, or Pontchartrain Park, as we call it, and Florida Avenue. Not 1 cent of those dollars, federal allocated dollars, made it to those areas.
That's it.
Not one. This area I live in New Orleans East, it is, we have a middle class out here, strong black middle class. You have a different area where the Vietnamese live in. We call it Village de East, and you also have Venetian Isles, which is where most of your white citizens live in as well. But none of the monies, it's so separate, different areas, but there's no development here. We have no, and I talk about this all the time, no businesses, nothing adequate. And, we go through it, but people tolerate that. I know there was money that was supposed to go to the Lower Ninth Ward specifically. They went and earmarked it to make developments for the Superdome. This actually happened, and they got away with it.
Well, I'm going to say why they get away with it, and one of the reasons why is because something happens to African Americans when they begin to sit in those seats. Like, this is the reward. Live for your piece of the pie. Live for your control and your power. All that sense of activism, all that. As much as I love John Lewis, I'm sorry, and I hate even saying anything because of the courageousness. Oh, okay. The courageousness. This is a man who laid down his life. I always start off that way. Lay down his life
So did Malcolm X.
So yeah, well, I'm a fan of Malcolm too. Not really, not 100%.
I get what you're saying, and I respect.
But Malcolm did not surrender his values. You could talk about a whole lot of people. Malcolm refused, unless you know something I don't know. Malcolm refused. That's why he's dead.
No, what I'm saying when I mentioned that, because you were about to mention John Lewis, and you respect him. When you started off, we said he laid down his life. I'm just mentioning those men who were not the opposite side of the coin.
I see. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Absolutely.
Yes, he was in Selma.
Yes.
And he did things, when he was in as a congressman, he was ineffective. And primarily from what I've heard, just looking at his record, in fact, even I think it was the Wall Street Journal, they did an article about his area, because I remember when he and Trump were going back and forth, and not just him, even the congressman out of Baltimore that passed away too, Elijah Cummings. Elijah Cummings made the comment about he was upset that Trump would call Baltimore a rat-infested, zombie-infested area, but there was a videotape of him saying the same thing 20 years ago. And these people, again, he gets reelected. Nancy Pelosi gets reelected. Maxine Waters,
and having done nothing.
right?
I mean,
Atlanta, I've been to Atlanta. They got nothing but home. I'm not gonna say nothing, but there's a lone homeless population that they talked about under the interstates in these areas that are run by Democrats. That's just the reality. They
but
haven't
see,
done it
when
yet.
Trump asked, "Where's the money that was allocated for this? Where is it?" Complete silence. Complete silence. But Trump should not ask that question. There's Barack Obama should have asked that question. What's our sister out there in California, Texas?
Maxine Waters.
Maxine Waters and the other one. She wears her hair to blood. She's smart as I don't know what though, but I can't think of. She's from Texas. I can't think of her name. Yeah.
Barbara Jackson.
Right. They should have said, "Our people live there. I've been elected. I know this is Baltimore, but did you ever ride the train from? Or maybe you haven't. From Newark to Washington. A hush goes over the train when they get to those places. A hush. People are just looking and saying to myself, who is living there? And it's shocking to find out that there's people there. I mean, it's such a blight. Now, if the money is missing, where's someone stomping their feet saying, if I was ever elected, that's the first thing I would do. Mm-hmm. I'd move the people out and change the housing. This is disgraceful. But we are supportive of that party. Mm-hmm. They're overly supportive, and that's what the frustration is. But something happens to us when we get my good friend out there in Tennessee. I can't think of his name either. Some of these people. John Lewis could have wrote his own ticket just doing the right thing. Why he did something else and chose to be self-aggrandizing and go for their own, just for the system. The system just absorbs you. You have to fight against it. But he was. It's sad. It's sad. I've had discussions with persons who've had direct discussions with him, and shocking.
Yeah. Shocking. I've met. And I know people who have fought in the civil rights movement and voting rights. I know people that known him, but I used to go on tours when I was younger. When I was a kid, we would do freedom ride tours all from New Orleans all the way through Atlanta, where we would stop off at certain museums and see certain spots. So I remember all of this stuff. And I've seen Coretta Scott King in person. I've seen John Lewis in person, and like I say again. I'm looking at them as a congressperson, as politicians. People keep reelecting them, and they've been ineffective. And just his primary thing as a congressman that I read was basically trying to get Congress to list national historic sites and take them on field trips for where the civil rights movement occurred when he was in Selma, because that's all truthfully, that's all he talked about. Was how he got his butt kicked himself. I mean, that's not. I mean, did anybody? That's what he was known for. Mm-hmm. But I've put up the link for everybody to go look at this act. Vulcan, what's up, Vulcan? You asked me, what do I think about House HR 127? I have done videos going in depth about that. That's the gun control bill that Sheila Jackson Lee. That's another one out in Houston.
That's it.
That's the one that's sponsoring that bill. It's very dangerous. I'll just say that. I certainly think that if you are a gun owner, and especially if you are a black gun owner in particular, you should be greatly concerned. Because one of the things in that bill that they are talking about, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but if you want to give your thoughts on it, Reverend Childress, you can, because Shawn and I have discussed it, but it certainly has Fourth Amendment implications because you have to let the government know where you store your gun. You have to let them know who else has access to your firearm. If you have to have certain requirements, if you've ever been diagnosed with any mental illness or if you battle anxiety or depression, anything like that, you have to disclose it. You have to get counseling. And if the counselor says that you're not qualified or not mentally fit to own a firearm, they can deny you a permit. So I think everybody should be concerned about this. It's also a Fifth Amendment issue because if I got to tell the government, and let's say I did something I'm not supposed to, well, the Fifth Amendment says that I don't have to incriminate myself. So that's another issue that we have. So that's just one aspect of that. But I want to get to the Equality Act. But if you want to talk, Reverend Childress, on that, you can go ahead.
No, Second Amendment. I'm a believer in the Second Amendment. I believe also that it's necessary to still keep the Second Amendment alive and well. And unfortunately, yes, you will have the cases that the wrong people have access because of my freedom to own or to have available within my reach a gun. But I think it far outweighs the bad. So I believe in the Second Amendment rights. Now, the only thing I would want in this day and age, you got to understand, my dad used to carry his gun to school, put it in the back, go to class because he traveled along certain areas. He was African American. He had to travel a ways to the school that would allow him to go. And he was strapped. But the teacher didn't take his gun away when he got to school. It was a different society. I understand that. So, but my point is unquestionably, I think there should be some scrutiny to who is getting the guns record wise. And if you could pass you shouldn't be able to buy a gun and you have the evidence, you clearly are going through anxiety issues because that gun could be used on you or the wife or the husband or whatever. Now, there may not be any way to detect that, okay? But I think sometimes there are some things we could do, but I'm all for the Second Amendment. The Equality Act is a DNC agenda, but it's also a world agenda. And what is that world agenda? It's communist, and it's at its core, Marxist at its core. And what it does, people have to understand, this is all by design, to break up the family, to distort Genesis. I always tell people, it's always an attack on Genesis, okay? And therefore, there's evil behind it, which they may know or not know. I'm not here to try to discern that, but I'm certainly going to discern the motive of it. And we're right now in a crisis because of the party itself is consumed by this spirit that wants these absurd. Now, how can you not see allowing men to wake up in the morning and decide they want to be women? On Monday, they were bench pressing 300 pounds. On Tuesday, they decide to be a woman. On Wednesday, they're still bench pressing 300 pounds. Okay. And you're going to allow that person to go in to compete. But this is a good thing because it's getting people to say, whoa, wait a minute. His hands are bigger. His arms are bigger. His shoulders are broader. He is stronger. He has a complete advantage. So what you're doing, you're just eliminating women's women. The two brothers out there in Connecticut erased 15 records of women. So what you're going to do, you're going to eliminate women's contribution to the union of men in this world. I mean, there'll be no more a distinction. And that's what any cloudy demonic power would want. You surrendered bathrooms. We allowed this to continue, allowing sexual predators to go into bathrooms simply because of the way they're feeling that day. We have basically unquestionably endangered our children with the Equality Act. Now, here's the other thing. I would have to perform a wedding now of two men or two ladies. How are you going to enforce that?
Well, let's go back for a second.
Well, there's
Let's
more.
go back for a second. This, which I just pulled up earlier, this is the Equality Act. It's HR 5. Uh, this bill, essentially, when you talked about religious uh, freedom, about being forced to perform weddings, for
No
instance,
more religious freedom.
it's everybody's religious freedom.
Right. But I'm saying there'll be no such thing as religious freedom. HR, what's it?
Well,
HR will trump
well,
your
yeah.
faith.
Well, wait. Well, let's go back. No, but here's the thing. Though, when we talk about religious freedom, it's not just about an organization. When the Supreme Court has been clear on this, it's not about an organization in particular, but it's also your morals and what you believe.
Right.
For instance, even in the military, if there are orders that you receive that you know or you believe are immoral and are questionable, highly immoral and highly questionable, you do have a right to not follow that if it violates your conscience, if it's against morals. You have a duty to do that. What this does here, and I specifically look at Section 1107, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993, that's 42 United States Code 2000 BB, shall not provide a claim concerning or a defense to a claim under a covered title or provide a basis for challenging the application or enforcement of a covered title. So that means anything in here, just from looking at this, when you're talking about sexual orientation, whether you're talking about gender, so everybody could take a look at it. But essentially, what this does is the religious. Let's get back to the now. Let me fast forward to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that I was just talking about in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
That was signed into law by Bill Clinton.
Yes.
To protect religious freedom. In actuality, Bill Clinton was opposed to gay marriage at one point. He actually signed the Don't Defense of Marriage Act into law that was passed in 1995. That got struck down in 2013 by the United States Supreme Court. So, and Obama, when he was president, he said that he would not enforce it. So, if you look at the Religious Freedom, that act, and even look at the Constitution, the First Amendment says that Congress shall make no law providing the establishment of religion or or hindering the free exercise thereof. You know, Congress, it's made clear in the Constitution, in the First Amendment, you have freedom to exercise your religion. And while I don't support, obviously people getting hurt, people getting necessarily discriminated against, I also know that people also have a First Amendment right to believe what they want to believe and practice their faith. And I know, I believe it was in 2012 in Hawaii, the courts ruled that churches could not get an exemption on their properties for civil unions and same-sex marriages. If you performed the ceremony, you had to perform. If you performed it for heterosexuals and you had your property available to the public, you had to in turn do it for LGBTQ. You could not get an exemption if you were a church. Uh, this also happened. There was also another issue. Remember what happened with the baker in Colorado,
Right.
who, in his favor, they stated that it was a freedom of it wasn't just a freedom of religion, but a freedom of expression, and it was a 5-4 vote, which included Anthony Kennedy, if I'm not mistaken, who voted in support of him. And Kennedy has always been the swing vote. He was the one that said gay marriage should be legal. He wrote the opinion in that.
Yeah.
So, but what's also funny is that the same Supreme Court that struck down the Voting Rights Act of 1965, part of it, they supported and struck down Defense of Marriage Act. So I find it interesting how people will support the rights of one over the rights of others. And I'm talking about real voting rights, not choosing to, not things dealing with a sexual nature. So you guys ought to take a look at what is in this bill. because, and when we talk even about gender identity, like what Reverend Childress was saying, when I look at the sports aspect, and Shawn, I want you to get your opinion. There was if you're a 300-pound, 6'4" man lifting weights and you're breaking records in women's weightlifting, I'm sorry, but that's foolish. you ain't make, you're not no hero.
I'd have
I
to
saw,
say, I'd have
yeah,
to say that they're a coward because to go into the women's section shows that you can't compete on the level with the men, and you don't want to put the effort into competing with the men. I mean, if you're supposed to be a good athlete, then you would want to compete with the men, but this just shows again the cowardice of these kind of people. And this legislation is fundamentally flawed because it goes against everything that our Constitution states that it's supposed to be about. I mean, our Constitution is supposed to be a sacred document, and this whole piece of legislation, when I look at the impact of it long term, it takes the country down the road of the last days of the Roman Empire. Now, the last days of the Roman Empire, these people were caught up in their hedonism, and I look at these whole gender bending as part of that, caught up in your hedonism, and you're not thinking about the rights of the average person. It's just all about your feelings. And this piece of legislation really takes us into that kind of era that led to that whole fall of the Roman Empire, because we're focusing on trying to give rights to those people who, as I see it, in some cases have mental health issues and are just absolutely deviant. And the giving them rights is like, why would you give a crazy person rights because they're completely insane? And then I look at the whole gun issue, and that goes completely against our Second Amendment, which is supposed to protect our rights to bear arms. I mean, we're heading into the areas where, if we remember, the King George wanted to go out here. He wanted to go out here and bring troops to people's homes and have them going through people's property. I mean, this whole law is just fundamentally flawed, and it just goes completely against everything our country stands for. But because a handful of people who have a certain viewpoint, they want to push these type of ideas, but these ideas are completely un-American, and they go completely against everything our Constitution is supposed to be about. And it's up to Americans, we the people, to stand up against this small group of deviants and people who want to take us down this far left crazy agenda into communism, and let them know that, look, this is the United States of America, and we have a Constitution, and we have rights under that Constitution, and we're not going to allow you and your crazy ideas to try to turn this country into something that it's not.
it's also going to cause problems not just for pastors, but even for lawyers like myself, because we have in our code of professional conduct, we have provisions that prevent lawyers, if they choose to, from taking a case if they feel it would compromise, their religious beliefs or their morals. They're obligated; they don't have to take on a particular case. But by this, you can make me guilty or liable, at least in a civil court, because it's not a crime as of now. But you can make me civilly liable if I refuse to, if I wanted to represent somebody that's pushing for, certain rights or certain things, if whether it be wanting to integrate the girls' basketball team or change separate bathrooms, things of that nature. That might be a possibility. At the end of the day, even if this passed, people say, well, the courts could strike it down. Yes, they can, but courts are not 100% reliable.
That's right.
Courts can change. Our Supreme Court, especially, because if we go through history, and history has told us that men don't keep repeating the same mistakes because they don't read and learn about their history. It doesn't repeat itself. It's just people who fail to learn from their mistakes over and over again, and that's the definition of insanity. Now, but to get to my point here in particular, I see certainly this being challenged. I know that the Senate right now it's 50-50, but Kamala Harris holds the tiebreaker. It depends on who is willing to vote on this. And maybe the Senate will filibuster it. I'm actually seeing articles where certain members of the LGBTQ, the leading civil rights organization for gays and lesbians, GLAAD, they have a headline right here on the Daily Beast. They say major news outlets failed in coverage of the Equality Act, as if nobody's talking about it. Well, nobody talks about it, and I think the reason why no one is talking about it is because if people actually went and read what was in it, or just looking at it, a lot of people are not in favor of it.
Right. And you're conditioned not to talk against it by society, by the media.
And let me be clear about something too, because as an attorney, I represented and have worked with people of all walks of life. That includes white people, black people, brown people, Chinese people. I've worked with gay people, and I treat people no differently than how I would like to be treated. However, do I have to go to a gay wedding? Do I have to agree with everything that they say and do? No, I don't. General Patton even said, like General Patton said, if everybody's thinking the same thing, something's not working.
The John Adams quote: "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to govern any other." Well, this is where we're at right now. Unfortunately, the United States is no longer at the moral peak it should be, but you still have that residue there that people are going to be offended by this bill. But do they have the resolve to step up? Mm-hmm. It's no question right now that you have government determining gender, determining interacting and how to socialize within the society. I don't want to belong to the point, but I just preached this on Sunday when the Equality Act came up and all that. And I had a part of my sermon was that this is what Jesus talked about. He says, as the days of Lot, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. What do you mean by that? Lot and the homosexual community coexisted and they were prosperous until they chose to invade Lot's home. In other words, to go into his space, his normal interactions with people. There were two men there. They perceived as men. They didn't know they were angels, but angels appear to us as men. And they wanted to sexually know them. And Lot was shocked. He said, what are you doing? You can't, no, don't do this evil. Don't do this thing. So in other words, there was an understanding between the two, what he thought of them, but they coexisted. Lot was very prosperous in Sodom, but later on, I think it's Peter or whatever said he was vexed by it. So he wasn't effective. And so they chose to come in to have sex with the men, and you know the rest of the story. But Jesus said it was going to be like that. They're going to invade your space. They're going to want to talk to your children. They want to dictate to your daughter and to your son and impose their lifestyle on the heterosexual community. Lot was heterosexual, and they were going to impose their lifestyle on him. And so this is where we're at. I'm not saying don't fight. I don't think anybody is more resilient about fighting, taking the hits and getting back up and going at it than myself. But the fact of the matter is, it may be this way for a while, and it's up now. God was speaking globally, maybe not here. Okay, maybe not here in this country. Maybe there is a remnant here that will rise up. But it is, as he said, it is as the days of Lot. And once again, we were coexisting. There have always been since Genesis in the society. But this thing of coming out of the closet, this is far more. It's coming out of the closet into my closet now, into my domain. And that's where right now we see the misconception. Now you're going to tell my child, basically, who is still sensitive during orientation, that they should experiment, that they should try other things. They're imposing, that's an ideology. You're imposing it on him. It wasn't necessary before. It's not necessary now. Government's in the sex business. They're in the gender describing. They're into interactions. They're determining how you interact with one another.
It's overextending its reach.
Yeah, and that's getting into dangerous territory because that's damn near borderline pedophilia. Matter of fact, let me play this video. This was I had this.
The specific question was about
Tariq Nasheed posted this. That's Senator Rand Paul, and the individual that's being interviewed is Biden's pick nomination for the head of the. I believe it's which I'm trying to see what department that is. Let me see if anybody knows who this individual's name is. But this is a person that is a man, born a man, but he identified. But I don't.
Oh, she's transgendered. Yeah, I know. I know you're talking about. Yes, I didn't know.
I don't know per individual's name. But let's see. Hold on, I can find it here. Unless somebody in the chat, y'all know who their name is, but I can find it here. Hold on. Okay, here it is. Dr. Levine. Rachel Levine, that's the name that he goes by, who is an ex-Pennsylvania health secretary. He was the former secretary of Pennsylvania Board of Health, and now Biden has picked this individual to be confirmed in the Senate for the Department of Health and Human Services. So that's Rand Paul. He was questioning Dr. Levine, and this is what happened.
minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. I'm alarmed that poor kids with no parents who are homeless and distraught, you would just go through this and allow that to happen to a minor. I would hope that you would have compassion for Kira Bell, who's a 23-year-old girl who was confused with her identity. At 14, she read on the internet about something about transsexual. She thought, well, maybe that's what I am. She ended up getting these puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. She had her breast amputated. But here's what ultimately she says now. And this is a very insightful decision from someone who made a mistake, but was led to believe this was a good thing by the medical community. I made a brash decision as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do, trying to find confidence and happiness, except now the rest of my life will be negatively affected, she said, adding that the medicalized gender transitioning was a very temporary, superficial fix for a very complex identity issue. What I'm alarmed at is that you're not willing to say absolutely minors shouldn't be making decisions to amputate their breast or to amputate their genitalia. For most of our history, we believe that minors don't have full rights and the parents need to be involved. So I'm alarmed that you won't say with certainty that minors should not have the ability to make the decision to take hormones that will affect them for the rest of their life. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field. And if confirmed to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care and the complexity of this field.
Let it go into the record that the witness refused to answer the question. The question is a very specific one. Should minors be making these momentous decisions? For most of the history of
for transgender.
Okay.
No, that's a good piece.
Yes, and what he was referring to in the video was this girl. Her name was Kira Bell, black girl, who transitioned and transformed into a boy, supposedly, and ended up not happy about what happened to her. So she has regrets about it, and this is a minor. But this is what. But this is what is going on in this country right now, and that will be what's supported by this Equality Act. So, Vulcan says here, facts: the LGBT community today wants more than just acceptance; they're pushing an agenda now. Well, and they have powerful allies. I mean, listen. The reason why Don't Ask, Don't Tell came into law, and Bill Clinton proved that was because of a guy named David Geffen. You probably have heard of David Geffen because he was actually a music executive guy. He's also been involved in films. He had a production company. In fact, at one time, he and Michael Jackson were good friends, and they were going to make a film company together, but they had a falling out. And I think Geffen had gone on and worked with DreamWorks, if I'm not mistaken. But Geffen was in, they have pictures of David Geffen with Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King and a group of others on a boat, especially when that Michael Jackson documentary came out, Leaving Neverland. And we know where Oprah, we know where Oprah and Gayle King stand on that. But what I was going to say, but he was the reason why that came about. He gave money to Clinton's campaign, and Clinton was of the mindset, well, I will not overturn sodomy laws, but what I'll do in the military, but what I'll do is I'll put don't ask, don't tell in. And that's how they were able to sneak in with that. They have people in Hollywood, people and directors and so forth that are, gay. You look at Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen DeGeneres is not even funny. I never thought Ellen was funny, but like Judge Joe Brown says, she can keep her TV show, even when they're reporting how she's been abusive to her staff, to her.
No, that's the anointed darling of the LGBT. I mean, and she knows it. To think that they were going to get rid of her in disgrace was foolish for anyone. She is the face until she does something so outrageous they would have to. But she's the one that's chosen to be the individual to bring the message.
You're right, Black Mama. That is a very strong point, and I thought the same thing. If we can tell children that they can make a decision on changing their sex, what about them actually having sex? I think about that.
Well, this is a slippery slope that the alphabet community wants to take us on. And it's a dangerous one because these children can't really make these decisions for themselves. I mean, we have laws to protect minors from themselves because their minds aren't fully formed and they just don't have the critical thinking skills to make these decisions. But the alphabet community, as I see it, they're like a cult. They want to try to find ways to recruit people into their deviant acts and their deviant behavior. And what they want to do is find them young so that they can indoctrinate these people. And they want to try to impose their will on people, and it's related to their deviant behavior because it's all about their lust and their obsession with this whole, everything is related to sex. And that's what they want to do, is indoctrinate people at an early age into this behavior. And now they want to use the government to do this. And this is a very scary thing about this law that they have, this Equality Act, is that we have the government interfering in people's lives, and they're going after the children who cannot really defend themselves. If we look at that case, this child had no parents to stand up and defend them. And from what I've seen from other people out here, you've got some parents out here going along with this foolishness, not understanding that this child, you're destroying their life. And then on the other side of this alphabet narrative, anybody who talks about how these surgeries affect people negatively, they bury that form of media and don't want to talk about it. And this is, again, it shows us the cult-like mindset in the alphabet community as related to them and their behavior and how they want to impose their will on the American people. And that's something the American people have to push back on. Yes, you have your rights under the Constitution. You have your civil unions. You have your marriage. But you don't have a right to tell people how to live. And you don't have a right to try to indoctrinate people into your way of life. I thought that everything was supposed to be about people having their freedom of choice. And shouldn't heterosexual people have a right to say no to you? That's a critical question I want to ask. I mean, if you have a right to say that you want rights at the table, then I should have a right to say no. And a child should have a right to make a decision regarding whether or not they want to choose to be a part of your lifestyle and your culture. And we don't need laws to do that. Again, we have laws under the Constitution that guarantee everybody a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the American people, the straight American people, have a right to their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness if I'm leaving you alone, then to live your life, then you should leave me alone to live my life. And it shouldn't be you trying to make everybody like you, because that shows insecurity as related to your position. Because when you have to force people to follow your doctrine, and experienced this in junior high school and high school, it shows that you're afraid of somebody having more power than you. And that's, I think, one of the core foundations to a lot of these alphabet dysfunctions, is that a lot of people fear somebody having power in the situation. And in some cases, they like to use their phallus as a weapon, or their genitals as a weapon, to get that power over another person.
Yeah. What I would say too. What's up, Black Mamas? Good to see you in the chat, baby. I mean, Vulcan said her ass didn't even answer the question. That's not a her.
No, she didn't answer the question. What she did was deflect. And that's a classic tactic that sociopaths have. Sociopath or psychopath, they love to deflect from answering a direct question because they don't want to be held accountable or responsible.
So so looking forward, what's the solution to stuff like this if we're worried about it? Because people can lose. I know of people that have lost their jobs for speaking out on this stuff. I have family members that tell me, Gavin, be careful about on topics because you don't want to lose your job. You don't want to lose any potential revenue or anything like that when this stuff comes on. Because I know of people who will talk about this and they will lose their job. Look what happened with Kim Burrell, the gospel singer that was in her church a couple of years ago. She had a guest spot on Ellen, actually. She also was on the Hidden Figures soundtrack with Pharrell. And apparently, when they caught her preaching in church, she was preaching in church, her First Amendment right. They heard her. Someone recorded a 20-second snippet of it, but I think she did a whole hour of preaching. But they took that one snippet, it went viral, and she lost her endorsement deal. She lost her radio show, which was on college radio. It was Texas State University's radio station, which I don't know why she didn't sue, because that's another First Amendment issue, because it's a state school. She was in church. So I looked at all of that. I'm wondering, well, what are we going to do? Because it's like you're being bullied into accepting this. You are being forced to accept this. There's a difference between tolerating something and totalitarianism, and really tolerance versus fascism.
Yeah, I was going to say fascism. Yeah, you're being bullied. This is an agenda. It is deliberate. Major objective they have already now in New Jersey hit where they really wanted was the kindergarten, first grade, second grade, this slow indoctrination to basically to perk a child's interest in even experimenting or trying, let's face it, just to be honest, coming up, girls used to practice kissing on each other, not the guys. There was a difference. Okay.
Right. Right. You're right.
No, and people, these are basic stuff. There's a difference. Guys won't do that, but girls did. Different mindset, different psyche. You're now invading and distorting all that. And what this, I pray, comes out and say, listen, Genesis is right. In the beginning, he created them both male and female. There is a difference. They are wired differently. They see things from a different perspective. You unquestionably cannot in any way try to invade and come up with a remedy for your agenda in distorting anything that God has called a staple. The family is the most fundamental building block in the country, in the world. And now they're going past the family structure. They've gone into gender. And they're allowing us to switch genders and have laws to penalize, weaponize against us if we have any opposite view. Nature, first chapter of Romans, testifies against you. You will never be happy. If we changed all the laws just the way you wanted them, you're never going to be happy because nature testifies against that.
Yeah.
And so we have to stand up. You ask what to do? Parents. The church, of course, that may take a while. But parents are the strongest lobbying force I've seen come up against the LGBT agenda, the vaccine, certainly agenda, was the parents. A group of parents came out in force. That law was buried. Right now, we're trying to come out in force against the Reproductive Freedom Act. So far, they tabled it. When they see parents respond, they begin to back up because they all worry about being elected. But I warn your listeners, the Democrats realize their agenda is not favorable to the society at large. They're going to continue to conduct, unless somehow it's stopped, crooked elections. I can say what I want to you, knowing I'm going to be elected anyway, because I have it, it's rigged. And that's what's happening. So you'll have to accept this agenda. And guess what happens when something like this continually happens? The voter becomes disillusioned and begins just to accept the status quo. That's what happened in Venezuela. He was fixing the elections every time. And many people just began to say, hey, later. But we need fair elections to start this. If they know we have fair elections and parents rise up, and one day the church wakes up, we can shift this. It's not as difficult as it seems. We can shift it.
Yeah. I was showing everybody, but I thought this was funny because we were talking about Ellen. Mad TV did a sketch on Ellen some years ago, making fun of her.
Boy,
at her show.
Knew more about Martin Luther King. Hang on a second, folks. I'm looking for a joke. There somewhere. Nope, nothing. Anyway, DJ Tony, let's get this damn party started.
Yeah, they would. I watched these old reruns because this is about the only funny stuff on TV when you look at In Living Color or Mad TV. It's funnier than Saturday Night Live, but.
Thank you.
But
DJ Tony, you ever wonder what fish think about?
I'm a British black man. That's what sets me apart.
That's Jordan Peele.
All right, now.
I know. It's
yeah,
right.
is named John Madden. So let's bring him out here and see who he is. Ladies and gentlemen, John Madden.
You say John Madden, football John Madden?
Yeah. But this is what she would do. All she does is dance, and even Paul Mooney called her a fake because Flip Wilson used to do that. Mm-hmm. Flip Wilson used to dance in the crowd, huh? She stole that from him. That's what he says.
John Madden. Boy, oh boy. What is it you do again?
Well, I talk about football and all kinds of football. I mean, it's just football.
Boy, you ever wonder why it's called a football? Not shaped like a foot. It's shaped more like an olive. Yeah, they used to call it olive ball. There'd be a big pimento in the center. You catch it. Oh, it's on the face. And then you eat it up.
I don't get this show. First you're dancing over there, and then you're dancing over here, and then you give it to Ahmad Rashad over here. And people laughing at things that I don't find particularly funny at all. It's kind of a word play.
See, they knew about that.
I'm trying to figure some of that stuff out. And then you got what's the fish thinking? And I didn't get that bit at all. And then I'm hearing that. God, I just want to talk about football. Are you high on drugs? In merry old England, football is soccer. That's what sets us apart.
So, you ever wish that your name was John Gladden? Like, Ellen the selfish.
I would tell you somebody who's not selfish. Brett Favre. I mean, I don't, but he's the greatest player. He could cut off both his arms and both his legs. He would still be the best torso in football.
Torso. That's a weird word.
Hey, listen, enough of this garbage. I don't know. I am out.
No, wait, who wants to see John Gladden dance?
That's essentially her show, Ellen DeGeneres. That was Frank Caliendo, and that's Nicole Parker.
Kick it with something fresh, huh? Show us what sets you apart.
No, I know it's not good for your job, man.
Yeah, but he Frank Caliendo, yeah, that's what he was known for. He was doing John Madden impressions, and he had him down pat. But that was funny. But yeah, I was thinking about that. But I'll just close, Shawn. I'll let you have the last word on what you think we should do, because I was talking about this last night on Judge Joe Brown's show with Valerie Denise Jones. People will probably eventually start pulling their children out of school, homeschooling their kids when this stuff gets passed legal, throughout the country, like LGBT history. People are actually doing that. So that might be one step that'll wake him up.
I believe this is going to be a major pushback, and I believe the pushback is going to come from the women, because the women of America, they're the ones who are going to lose the most as related to this legislation. I mean, they've already lost women's sports overall. And I believe that America's women are just going to get fed up because, again, America's women control the economy and America's women control the job market. So what the Democrats don't understand is you're getting ready to alienate the biggest voting bloc in this country if you push this Equality Act and take away women's rights. Those women are going to get fed up, and like you said, they're going to take their kids out of these public schools, which means those public schools aren't going to get funding. And it also means that these women are also going to start pulling their kids out of the society, and they're going to stop buying consumer products. Now, the American economy, again, is 2/3 consumer based, and it's controlled by women. And those women, they're just going to get fed up. And again, this goes back to the old African proverb, which says a race can rise no higher than the moral position of its women. And as the women go, so goes the race. And the American woman is going to she's going to get disgusted by this alphabet agenda, because this agenda runs counter to her, because she needs to have children in order to have families. And this alphabet agenda, this cult, is all about just recruiting members to participate in sexual deviancy and sexual debauchery and pedophilia. So this runs counter to her, and this isn't what she voted for as related to equality. I mean, we already have legislation on the books that gives many members of the alphabet community rights as related to their civil rights and their rights to, again, have a marriage. They're having rights under the law, but now they're overstepping their bounds and trying to go from fighting for their rights to trying to recruit people into their lifestyle. And when you do that, you violate not only the Constitution, but you alienate the biggest voting bloc and the biggest consumer base. And there aren't enough people out here to help you as related to that, because there's a reason why we have a phrase in the comic book community we call "get woke, go broke," because you can put this stuff out here like the Ellen Show, and if nobody's watching it, eventually you're going to lose your shirt on it. And if the women don't want to go out here and participate in the economy because you want to keep pushing this sexual deviant agenda, they're not going to want to go out here and buy products, and they're not going to want their kids to participate in things like public schools, because while they may want to have a place to put their kids while they're working, they don't want their kids' moral position corrupted by these sexual deviants and their sexual deviant agenda, because everything with them is about sex. And most children are not ready for that type of discussion at all. They're not ready for that type of thing at a young age. And these people want to try to recruit people. And again, the solution is more Americans pushing back by passively not participating, economically not supporting certain groups and agendas, like some of these TV shows and movies, just not watching them. And like what the comic book community has done over the years, that we just don't buy the comics when they push this type of narrative. We don't buy it. And eventually this stuff, people stop ordering it. And you can call people ists and phobes all you want, but the basic laws of supply and demand tell us that, look, we can't continue making a product that doesn't sell, and you can't keep pushing an agenda that doesn't sell. And if you push to the American woman out of her place in American society, she's going to push back and push back so hard that she's going to practically send these guys back to obscurity. Because again, there's only 5 million people with these ideas and this mindset, and 5 million cannot go up against 330 million Americans strong, because 330 million Americans, they're going to look at it and go, look, we gave you every right that you're supposed to have, but you're still not wanting rights. You want to try to force your lifestyle on people. And that runs counter to everything out here. I mean, that's what tyrants and dictators try to do. They force their ideas on people. And that's not the American way. And you can't legislate people to force your way onto people, because people are just, if they don't like your lifestyle, they don't like your lifestyle. And they have a right to disagree with your lifestyle in a country where we have free speech, freedom of expression, and freedom to choose. We have a right to choose not to support your position. And if you don't like it, then that's just how it is. I mean, when I think about the whole thing as related to these people trying to push their agenda, again, it's just so un-American, it's not funny. Again, if you're a gay American or LGBT American, you understand that, okay, you have your lifestyle, but you can't force your lifestyle on other people. There is no monolith as related to America. We're supposed to be, again, about the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And again, the solution is Americans have to push back, because according to our Constitution, again, everybody has their rights, and no group has a right to impose their rights, their way of life on others, and insist they live their life. We insist we live their lifestyle, because that's not a democratic society. That's a tyranny.
Amen. Yeah. Right on that. Homofascism. Well, gentlemen, we have had a great discussion. It's been over 2 hours. So Farside fan, what's up? Farside says this is a good discussion. Yeah, Vulcan says right, exactly, Shawn. Black Mama says right, Shawn. What I say to you is this: is that you guys need to know that there are dark days ahead, and essentially, we all who are opposed to this have to be the ones and willing to take the hits and also hit back. The gloves come off with stuff like this when it comes to our children, when it comes to cartoons and stuff like they're trying to promote, like the John Dillerman thing that was going on. Judge Joe Brown made that known to me, but I mean, I had seen that coming. And other countries too. I mean, in Europe, I know that they are changing the sex. You can change the sex of your kid right after they're born. You can indicate that on a birth certificate. And I believe that's in the state of California. Their gender. Look what they did with Mr. Potato Head. Now they call it Potato Head. I'm just wondering what happens to Mrs. Potato Head then at that aspect. If Don Rickles was alive, he'd call everybody a bunch of hockey pucks. Because that was his character on Toy Story. So I'm looking at this. Farside place say, please don't say dark days ahead. Yeah, well, I mean, as the pastor was saying, if you believe in God and you study the Bible, if you've, even as a Catholic myself, who I'm aware of Marian apparitions that have happened around the world. I was telling Pastor Childress the last time he was here and Shawn was here about the apparition of the Blessed Mother in Quito, Ecuador, where she said that by the mid to late 20th century, which was around the 60s, that there would be a loss of innocence in the youth and the destruction of the institution of marriage, priests that would not be practicing their vows. She said all of that. I look at When we look at what's happening today, when we, in hindsight, looking at it, what happened in the 1970s? Well, Roe v. Wade came about that started abortion, and then subsequently, even before that, you had the Griswold v. Casey case that legalized contraceptives, and before that, even when prayers got taken out of schools and Bibles taken out of schools and so forth. You just wonder, was that what she was referring to? Or is it, and see that what we see today? Do we see the destruction of the family? Certainly, I see the family unit is not as strong as it was years ago. Even in the 90s, when the family unit was still strong, we didn't see stuff like this coming up as kids. Even if we knew people, we knew of people that were gay, we knew of people who would act effeminate and things of that nature. We didn't bother. It's much like this crap that they're trying to push, that black people are attacking the Asian community. Like, I saw that Nightline special, that clip that was circulating, which is a bunch of propaganda. We don't traditionally hang around with other groups, especially Asian groups, because if anything, they come to us because their shops are in our communities, their grocery stores, their gas stations, their chicken places. We go and shop in there. And how many times have we been followed in those stores? My father was telling me when he was in Los Angeles, I was with them on this trip. I was staying in the car, but they went in to go buy some type of clothing with my mother and my aunt. And all through the store, the Korean lady was following them. And he's like, "Why are you following me? I just got in here." She's like, "Oh, I want to see what you want to buy." He's like, "Well, when I pick something out, I'll come up and give it to you. I'll pay for it." He said, "I'm not here to steal anything from you. If I need help, I'll let you know. So you don't have to follow me." But that's the type of stuff we do. Where's Clenard Childress from? Reverend Childress is from New Jersey. Yeah. So this is the type of stuff we're dealing with. And, I'm grateful that these men were able to come on this Thursday to talk about this. It's always great conversation. But as Judge Joe Brown says, man up. Mm-hmm. That's what you got to do. Man up. It's man up time. When adversity calls, masculinity rises to the occasion. Manhood is challenged. The real men come in and push back. And that's what we got to do. You got to push back on some of this stuff and lies that go on. So Shawn, of course, he is the author of the John Haynes series. He has a new John Haynes series coming out in March later this month. And what is it called, entitled again?
It's called John Haynes Taking Care of Business, and it will be available on paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com.
Yes, and Pastor Childress' website, you guys could check out blackgenocide.org. I'm pulling it up right now. blackgenocide.org. And you guys go to that website, look up Mafa 21. That is a documentary that Reverend Childress was detailing the history of Planned Parenthood. And oh, by the way, since we're talking about, just to remind you all, even with Joe Biden, I just saw this earlier yesterday, that there's criticism even of him in regards to how kids are being held down at the border in camps and so forth. There are a lot of, even AOC has come out criticizing the administration now in regards to how they're handling that. So I found that to be very interesting. You can't blame Trump on that one now. He's out of office. So I don't know what, but when AOC is attacking you, there's a split going on in the Democratic Party right now. So you're going to see civil war.
Well, you're about to see
it now.
The vice president possibly become the president. I don't know how soon they're going to do that, but it's AOC has high aspirations as well as the crew that she hangs with. But by the way, the person with the in 1960 in early 1960, 85% of our homes were headed by two parents.
Yeah.
And now 75 to 80% of our homes are headed by a single parent. So it is a total maximum effort of the church, of communities, unquestionably. That's where God started. And family is extremely important. That's why it's continually under attack. And so we have to, when the church makes its comeback, they have to then will recognize the need for family, because they will have discerned the decimation of family and how it's affected their churches. If you notice, the major bodies of churches are headed by those of the 70s, 60s, when churches were basically relevant and viable. Churches are growing older and older in their composition of their congregations. And so when revival comes, it'll be led by the generation that always has shaking and shakers and movers, just like the civil rights movement. It's going to be the 18 to 26. That's really going to be something to see. God's not going to leave us like he found us, and he has a plan. And so if we hold through this time of testing, certainly, weeping may endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning. He that soweth his seed, he that soweth his seed weeping also shall doubtless come again, bringing his sheaves with them. So we're going to have a harvest day, but we have to have this day. And so unquestionably, it's maturing the church. I think, lastly, and I think it's in John 15, he prunes us back. This whole year, the church has been pruned back. Matter of fact, it started in this month. There are churches that are closed right now and will not open again. But there's other churches that have been fighting to stay relevant and also to stay viable. But he's pruned us back. Well, Texas and Mississippi may be sending the message that God's about to open the door, and we'll see the reason for the pruning back. But in John 15, it says he prunes us back that we would bring forth more fruit. The Democratic Party has attacked and done everything it can to silence the church, censor the church, and make the church appear that it's not relevant for today. But there's a day of comeback, and I hope it's soon. I don't know when, but certainly according to the prophetic outlook, we've been pruned back this year more so than any other time in our history. Well, than any other time in our nation's history. But now it's time for the comeback.
I want to show you this too. I'm gonna try and put it up here, but someone should put this online. Jason Reed, where Michelle Obama is having a conversation with. I'm not trying to attack this child, but Dwayne Wade's son, Zaya Wade. Now that's the name he goes by. Not that is his name, Zaya Wade, but he goes as a girl now. And Michelle Obama is praising him and having a hashtag Black Girls Rock that goes with this.
Will Smith, Jada Pickett. Now, we're under siege. We're under siege. God's going to do something soon. Maybe by the next time you call me to come on this program. I feel it strongly.
Well, I just don't understand why this is being pushed like this. Why is it celebrated?
Because it's the darkness of the times, and the scripture says that. He says, "Perilous times shall come." And in that scripture, 3rd chapter, 2 Timothy, he talks about they'll call right wrong, wrong right. Some of our enemies would be that of our own household. There's a lot in there that is so relevant today. It's scary, but there's also a day that's described in the midst of that the church basically takes its rightful place as the city set on a hill, the light upon the candlestick. He's the only institution that God said he was coming back for was the church. So we'll be here. And he says he's coming back for a church. I don't mean to be preachy, his church without spot or wrinkle.
But
it's just that I see everything that he said going on, even with cloning. That was Noah, as the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the sea. He named two people, Lot, and he named Noah.
Right. And
Yeah,
Noah
and
was a righteous man that found favor with God, right?
But there were fallen angels that were sleeping with women that were producing a hybrid race, and that was one of the reasons, our irredeemable race. We now, which the cameras are off of them right now because of everything that goes on. The cloning that is going on, I'm telling you, you see those things on the Terminator? These people,
they're talking about stuff like transhumanism, basically.
Man, you don't.
Like cyborgs and stuff like
they
that.
may be doing it, and we just don't know it. But if not, they're this close. They're this close. Well, you're producing as a humanoid, irredeemable, just as it was in the days of Noah. And what was Noah doing? Noah preached and he built. He preached and he built. It's just so much that's happening right now that as you read the scriptures, you say, back in the day, when I was reading in the 70s, I could see some things. But now you see everything. You see everything that God said is happening, is manifesting. And it's just up for us as the people of the Lord that want to see better and good, recognize that he is still working. It's not over yet. And that fortunately the nation was founded on a covenant, and God is going to keep the covenant. Even when we've been unfaithful, God has a means of being faithful. He's going to keep his vision that he had when he birthed this country, as flawed as it was.
Yes. Well,
are you gonna keep us here to midnight or what?
I'm actually about to wrap it up now. I was about to finish if you would let me do so.
I just have to look at the clock. I said, "Whoa."
Yeah, it's right now. I know everybody's got to go, but this has been a great conversation. I appreciate y'all for coming on, Pastor Childress. Shawn, I will see you tomorrow when you do your live stream, and I always look forward to your videos. I'm actually going to see your video drop tonight.
All right.
Duchess of Ratchetness, Meghan Markle. Could you please just do your accent briefly before we go?
Well, I could do the accent just for a minute, but I will be talking like this during the video where I talk about the Duchess of Ratchetness, Meghan Markle, and the bullying of palace staff at Buckingham Palace.
Pip, pip.
All right, sounds good.
Oh, cheerio, chapo. I pip, all that good old stuff you do. Yes. All right, guys, that's it for me. This has been another edition of Gavin Richard Presents. Give a shout out to my guests, Reverend Clenard Childress and Shawn James. Buy Shawn's books. Remember, we're trying to get Shawn a good vacation. But we got to send Shawn on vacation, so we got to get his book sales up. So you guys be safe, be blessed. Check out the Man Crisis and the John Haynes series. And I will see you all in the next one. All right.
All right. God bless. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank y'all.